Welcome back everyone to tutorial number 35, and in this video we are going to learn how to pass optional parameters while navigating from one view to another. So here's the new requirement for our application. We need a back button in the department detail component, and when we click on this button we should be navigated to the department list component. And the additional requirement is that when we navigate back to this department list component, the previously clicked on department should be highlighted. So if I click on Angular and then go to department detail component and then click on back and then head back to department list component, this Angular item should be highlighted. So let's see how to achieve this with optional route parameters. The first thing is we need to have this back button in the department detail component. So over here underneath next and previous, I'm going to have this button. So button, and then let's also close the button tag, and this button basically tells us to go back. Now we need to listen to the click event on this button, and when we click on this we need to go to the department list. So I'm going to have a handler called go to departments, and then let's go ahead and define this method. So we have go previous and go next, and similarly go to departments. Now over here what we need to do is navigate back to departments and then pass in the current selected department ID. So I'm going to create let selected ID as a local variable. This is going to be equal to department ID, and I'm also going to make sure that if it is null I pass in null. So department ID else null. Now after this we're going to use the router service. So this dot router dot navigate, the navigate method, and then we're going to have the link parameter array. So the first item in this parameter array is the destination, and that is nothing but the departments. And then to specify optional parameters we use an object with key value pairs. So first we specify the parameter, which is nothing but the key, and its value, which is nothing but selected ID. So ID is the key, selected ID is the value. Alright, so now what we are doing is we are sending this optional parameter ID to the department list component. So let's go over to the department list component and capture that parameter value. And to retrieve the route parameter, we do the exact same thing we did in the last video. We are going to make use of the params observable. So let's make sure first that we implement the onInit method. So implement onInit, and then we also need to define this ng onInit, and we can just copy paste what we did with department detail. So over here under the departments array that I have, I'm going to paste this ng onInit. Now route is not defined, so let's also have its injection. So private route, and that is nothing but the activated route. So activated route, and then you also need to import it. And params has a red squiggly, so let's go ahead and import that as well. So params. Now instead of department ID, I'm going to use another variable. So I'm going to declare public selected ID, and this is nothing but the ID of the department that was clicked on. So this dot selected ID is equal to ID. So what we are doing is from department detail we have sent the ID. So in department list we are going to go through this params observable, get this ID, assign the value to this local variable, and then assign it to this property selected ID. Now the next step is to make sure that we highlight the department that has the same ID as this selected ID. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a function is selected. This is going to take in the department, and it is going to basically return true or false, and it is going to return true if this department.id is the same as the selected ID. And where are we going to have this? We're going to make use of this in the list item tag to have class binding. So over here, I specify square brackets, class dot selected. And let me quickly go to the styles.css. And when this items or li tag has a class called selected, I'm basically just changing the background color and the font color. So this is going to give the appearance that that particular item is selected. So let's go back to department list. Over here, close this. So class dot selected. Apply a class called selected when the right hand side of this expression is going to be true. And what are we specifying on the right hand side? The isSelected function. So isSelected, and pass in the department that is under the current iteration. So department. Yeah, that's correct. So now I'm going to save this and I'm going to go back to our application. So I have departments. I click on Angular. It goes to departments/1. It says that you have selected the department with ID is equal to 1. I have a back button. When I click on back, and there you go. We pass in this optional ID parameter. So ID is equal to 1. And then if you see, Angular, which has ID equals 1, is highlighted. And if I do with Node, go back, Node is selected. The same with Mongo, go back, Mongo is selected. Now the difference between a required parameter and an optional parameter is that required parameter, for example, in the case of navigating to department detail component, this ID is a must. So I need an ID to navigate to that particular department detail. But optional parameter, over here, if you have a look, I can navigate to departments and I don't need to specify this ID. I'm just using it so that I can do some work, for example, highlighting a particular department using this. So an optional parameter is not going to affect your route in any manner, but a required parameter is going to affect it. It is going to check in app routing module and it is going to match this path. But an optional parameter is not going to do so. So just to demonstrate that, over here in department detail component, I can even specify additional, let's say, random value. So random, and this is going to contain a string called random. So let's save this. I'm going to go to Angular. Okay, I need to wait for this to reload. All right, so departments. So I'm going to click on Angular. So department, if you have a look at the URL, department/1. If I click on back, I get ID is equal to 1. And another key value pair, random is equal to random. So this doesn't affect my view in any manner whatsoever. I just pass it so that I can capture this and do some functionality if I have. So in our case, we need to highlight the particular department. So I passed it as ID and then highlighted it. And just to go over the code one more time so that you get a good understanding, I have a button. And when I click on this back button, I call this method go to departments. In the go to departments, I select the current department ID that I have visited, and this I am passing in as an optional parameter. So we are going to navigate to departments with ID as an optional parameter. Over here, I'm going to capture it using the params observable, and then I use isSelected function or method to make sure that it is the same department ID as the selected ID when we iterate over the departments, and if it is the same, I'm going to apply a class called selected, and that is how we are highlighting using optional parameters. Alright, so that pretty much does it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.